When everything around you feels loud and a little too much to take in, it helps to find a quieter spot. Welcome to 10 Better Minutes, a place for stories that invite a more steady and balanced look at the world. Here, we share recent real moments that remind us life is not just what makes the headlines, without ignoring the challenges we all face. Today, we will listen to a story about a country working to protect the voices of its indigenous communities, along with a generous act reaching across several cities. But first, let us begin with a moment in Las Vegas, where quick action helped bring a newborn safely into the world. On June 17th, Las Vegas Fire and Rescue responded to reports that a woman was in labor inside a flood control channel. When firefighter paramedic Eric Paul reached the scene, he was handed a newborn who was not breathing. Instead of waiting for time to catch up, Paul moved quickly and with purpose, clearing the airway, then stimulating the baby to help get breathing started. He also clamped the umbilical cord so he could assess the infant in the tight underground conditions where every second matters. In moments like this, rescue work becomes more than bravery. It becomes practical care, delivered step by step. Paul's calm actions gave the newborn a chance to respond, and he did. The baby came around and, by reports from responders, appeared very healthy. The mother was able to make it out of the tunnel as well, and both were taken to a local hospital. Officials said both the mother and newborn were expected to make a full recovery, and that expectation matters because it turns fear into something steadier. This story is a reminder that medical hope often looks ordinary on the surface. A cleared airway, a careful assessment, a quick decision made in the middle of chaos. Somewhere deep underground, teamwork and trained skill helped a new life begin to breathe, and that is worth holding on to. It is easy to feel like big headlines are only passing through, but sometimes they land in real places with real help. This story is a reminder that generosity can move through the country and touch everyday needs. In a week of announcements, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce donated a total of $26 million to over a dozen nonprofit organizations and charities across the United States, according to a representative. The support was aimed at hunger and other community causes, with gifts mentioned for groups such as City Harvest, Food Bank for NYC, and New York Cares in New York City, and the Los Angeles Regional Food Bank. In other cities, the release names Harvesters, the Community Food Network, Kansas City, and also highlights Nashville, including the store and Feeding America. What stands out to me is how these donations connect familiar problems to organizations that keep showing up. Hunger is not a single moment. It is a steady need, and nonprofits often depend on funding to keep serving people reliably. Seeing support spread across New York City, Los Angeles, Kansas City, and Nashville feels like a quiet kind of trust, the kind that says communities are worth investing in, right where they are. We do not always control what happens in the world, but we can choose to care in ways that last. And this is one of those moments where giving feels like a bridge, stretching from public attention to actual support for neighbors. Sometimes a single brave choice breaks through the ordinary routines of a day, and it leaves a quiet kind of hope behind. Last week, in an apartment swimming pool in Kentucky, 11-year-old Avery Woolery saw a man fall unconscious in the water, and he noticed how quickly the moment was getting passed by. Nobody else was acting, so Avery put on his goggles and went underwater. He grabbed the man and pulled him onto solid ground, keeping that first small window of time from closing. Then, after a call was made, a friend stepped in and began CPR while first responders were on their way. When the team arrived, the emergency response could finally take over, with Avery's quick action as the bridge between collapse and help. It is hard to overstate what it means when someone so young treats a crisis like a responsibility, not a rumor. Avery's father later said he was proud, and he mentioned how someone thanked the family for teaching him how to swim. That is the part that stays with me. Hope is not always loud. Sometimes it looks like goggles, a dive, and hands that refuse to wait. The man was taken to a local hospital and was reported to be in critical condition, but the story still carries light. Help met need because Avery chose to step forward and others followed. On a regular summer day, help can start with something as simple as listening closely, and it can end with nature getting another chance. Tonight, let us follow the quiet work of volunteers who show up safely for wildlife. Faith Davis, a trained volunteer for the Vermont Institute of Natural Science, responded to a report on a mountain road in central Vermont. She heard a persistent thump from her own SUV trunk, and she had been driving with an unconscious juvenile bald eagle that had been electrocuted on a power line. Instead of waiting, she kept her focus steady and drove about an hour and a half to the wild bird rehab at the Institute. Faith is one of about 100 trained volunteers that VINS dispatches across Vermont, New Hampshire, and eastern upstate New York, receiving more than 1,000 wild bird reports each year. Her work sits inside a network built to move quickly, because transport can be the difference between getting care and not making it in time. Davis shared that the survival rate for transported birds is about 40%, which is both sobering and motivating. In other places, community support looks like amphibians guided across roads on migration nights, or neighbors joining BioBlitz events so people can track local biodiversity with their own eyes and hands. These efforts are practical, and they build belonging around something shared. When volunteers act like Faith did, hope becomes a route, a ride, and a steady next step toward recovery. In biodiversity conservation, the most valuable knowledge is often the kind communities carry in their daily lives. This story follows Indonesia as it tries to make that knowledge easier to recognize in law and policy. Indonesia is drafting a roadmap to protect indigenous peoples' traditional knowledge as part of biodiversity conservation. The work began in June of 2026, led by the Indonesian Ministry of Environment alongside WGII, with input from government and community partners. The starting point is an idea that sounds simple yet changes everything. Conservation strengthens when it is built with the people who have long stewarded the land. WGII estimates that more than 29 million hectares of indigenous territories and community-managed areas could qualify as indigenous peoples and community-conserved areas and territories. Much of that land overlaps with ecosystems that need careful attention, including mangroves, peatlands, coral reefs, and seagrass beds. Still, the gap is striking. Only about 1 million hectares has been documented in WGII Voluntary National Registry, and about 7.4 million hectares of indigenous territories have formal government recognition. The roadmap process is meant to guide policy towards stronger recognition and support, shifting conservation toward the relationship between people and nature. It also signals a practical effort to align with the Convention on Biological Diversity and the 2022 Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework target of 2030. Rather than treating indigenous stewardship as an afterthought, the goal is to treat it as a foundation. It is the quiet kind of progress that builds trust, one shared roadmap at a time. As always, I have a simple tip for you to help your mind breathe a little easier and to make room for more joy in your day. Today's tip is about updating your life without treating every moment like it needs to be checked 10 times. Here's the pattern. You want one answer, one piece of information, one sign that you are safe or on track. So you open the same app again. You refresh, you scan, you wait for relief to show up instantly. But relief rarely arrives that way. What arrives instead is tension. Your body learns to stay on alert, and your attention gets scattered like pages blowing in the wind. Try this. Choose one trusted update. Set a single time to check, or pick one source you trust and stick with it. Then let it be enough for now. When you feel the urge to refresh, pause and ask yourself, if nothing changes in the next 30 seconds, What can I do with the time I still have? One update done calmly beats 10 anxious ones. You are not behind. You are practicing steadiness and giving your mind a chance to settle. We have reached the end of today's 10 Better Minutes episode, and I just want to thank you for making a little space for something kinder before you head back to your day. I hope it leaves you with that steady feeling that decency and care are still out there, often quietly, in real places and real people, even when the noise tries to convince us otherwise. If you have one good news story that you think others might miss, please share a link or a local example in the comments so we can all learn from it. This is Ian Rhodes with 10 Better Minutes. Take care, and I will see you tomorrow.